There are lots of old school games children used to play that have been co-signed to the history books. I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 games that kids don't play anymore. 25. Kick the Can. Kick the Can is a combination of hide and seek, tag, and soccer, which is thought to date back to the 30s. It's a game for 3 or more players, and you play it outside. One of your players becomes the it, and everyone else finds a place to hide. The it player then tries to call out the others while keeping control of the can. They need to be careful because a player whose hiding place is exposed can go for the can and kick it, meaning the finder has lost the game. 24. Hopscotch. Hopscotch involves hopping across a grid of numbered rectangles and squares on the ground. It starts when a rock, or a more child-friendly object, is thrown onto the grid. Your objective is to get across the grid and back. To make things more challenging, you do it on one foot. Often the hopscotch pattern was drawn in the schoolyard floor using chalk. Hands up if you remember chalk at school. This game is believed to have been played by ancient civilizations who lived thousands of years ago. Ancient Rome is one era where games of hopscotch have been recorded. 23. Red Rover. This game is probably too rough to be enjoyed by today's children. It's a hands-on game. Literally, because the opposing teams face each other in a line, holding hands. To win, players have to physically force their way through these chains of people one at a time. It's fun, but also the cause of a potential hospital visit if the game goes wrong. Now, we don't know where the game Red Rover comes from. The name has been linked to everything from a book title to a steamboat. You may have memories of the chant used during the game. Red Rover, let Mike come over. Oh, God. It's making my arms hurt just thinking about it. Just decking children or getting your arm ripped off. 22. Tetherball. The good old days where you got whacked upside the head by a tetherball. That thing was lethal as it whirled around the pole it was attached to. You were either one of those kids who avoided it like the plague for fear of getting injured, or you relished the challenge of hitting the tetherball back and forth with your buddies. Gradually, the ball and its rope would wind around the pole until it stopped. Because you were competing from different angles to achieve this, things became pretty fast and furious. If you're ever visiting Disney World, there's a tetherball pole at Fort Wilderness, right on the beach there. I played recently. 21. Foursquare. Foursquare is a fast-paced and high-pressure game that's played in the schoolyard. It's called Foursquare because there are 4 players who stand in a square pattern, divided into 4 smaller sections. You then hit the ball to each other using your hands, making sure the ball stays inside the lines. Plus, that ball must bounce once. Other players wait outside the square and can replace anyone who fumbles or catches the ball. There isn't actually a set rulebook for Foursquare, but those are the basics. 20. Dodgeball. Throwing balls to each other is a feature of many games and sports. With Dodgeball, however, that ball becomes a missile you have to avoid. It's all about hitting your fellow players with the ball and dodging the flak yourself. As you might expect, the high-octane game of Dodgeball is a source of anxiety for both parents and children. And they have reason to worry, because the game is thought to come from a highly dangerous version using rocks, which was played in Africa during the 19th century. Really glad we graduated to rubber balls instead of rocks. 19. Stickball. Those children who couldn't afford expensive equipment for games such as baseball found a great alternative with Stickball. Here, you don't need a fancy bat. A broom handle will do just as well. The budget-conscious game dates back to the 18th century, and it's associated with accidental property damage and disruption to traffic, among other risk factors. 18. Capture the Flag. Working in 2 teams, players of Capture the Flag use a blend of skill, strategy, and sheer physical exertion to keep their respective flags in place. You need to keep your wits about you, because if you let your guard down for the slightest second, a competitor could rush in and snatch your beloved flag. Today, people think a strategy game is something like Fortnite. Well, honestly, they don't know what they're missing. The flag, it's so shiny. What's the red versus blue stuff? I can't remember. Anyway, if you really want to make Capture the Flag fun, take my advice and do it in the snow. We once did that. We once set up forts. Not in Florida. We once set up forts, and you actually pegged people. So if you got hit with snow, so it was like dodgeball mixed with, it was actually really awesome. Gaze upon the flag. I can't remember the red versus blue quotes. Damn it. 17. Mousetrap. This game, first released in 1963, was practically a work of art. Where else could you play a board game and build a crazy mousetrap mechanism at the same time? Remember the plastic stunt diver who could actually launch into the pool? Also, there was that unforgettable grand finale where a basket rattled down a plastic pole to trap the poor mouse. I don't think I ever actually played it properly. I just built it and did it. 16. Paresi. Paresi involves 4 players who each have 4 pieces on the game board. The pieces, or pawns, movements are determined by a roll of the dice. Each group of 4 pawns needs to make it safely to the middle of the board. Whoever completes the race first is the winner. The basic idea of the game can be traced all the way back to ancient India and the game of Paresi. Paresi is a big deal over there, forming part of the national culture. 15. Risk. First played in the late 50s, Risk is a game of world domination. That said, it isn't like a video game where you go in all guns blazing to capture different countries. Risk requires patience, plus a sense of diplomacy. It's also a slow burn type of game that takes a long time to play. Games have been known to take approximately 8 hours, though you can complete it faster. 14. Cat's Cradle. Cat's Cradle was first referenced in the late 18th century. It's a classic game for 2 or more players, which is all about string. Yeah, you heard me correctly. String. You play with string in a cat-like fashion. Each player takes a turn looping the long string around their hands and wrists. You then make a cradle shape or an X with the string with your middle finger. From there, you can use your dexterity and creativity to make shapes. I was terrible at it. 13. Rock, Paper, Scissors, Lizard, Spock. Rock, Paper, Scissors is a well-known game, whether you're into traditional games or not. So, what in the name of Milton Bradley is Rock, Paper, Scissors, Lizard, Spock? Well, the viewer of The Big Bang Theory are very familiar with this enhanced version. How do you play it? Well, rock, paper, and scissors do the things they're supposed to do. So, for example, rock beats scissors. In this revised edition of the classic game, however, Spock can vaporize a rock. Meanwhile, a lizard can be decapitated by scissors. The lizard is also capable of beating Spock by poisoning him. 12. Pogs. This 90s game saw kids flipping cardboard discs, which came with colorful and collectible designs. It had an old school reference point, namely a similar game which was played with tops from milk bottles. The discs have also been compared with the ancient Japanese game of Menko. Pogs and their heavier counterparts, the Slammers, were a sensation for a while in the closing decade of the 20th century. Sadly, the effect wore off pretty quickly. Oh, I had so many of them. I had a cool Slammer. I remember the big ones, but I had one that was an 8-ball. Let's bring Pogs back. Hashtag bring back Pogs. 11. Lincoln Logs. Imagine Lego, only it's made of wood and log-shaped. That, my friends, was the fun world of Lincoln Logs, which were first released in the early 20th century. They had a good run, reportedly staying popular for the better part of 100 years. Unfortunately, plastic bricks and block-based video games were deemed more exciting. If you're curious to play with Lincoln Logs, they're actually available to buy. What's more, the intellectual property rights are owned by the toy and gaming giant Hasbro. 10. Lightbrite. Hasbro's illuminating game Lightbrite saw players use semi-transparent pegs on a board which lit up from underneath, producing colorful and entertaining patterns. Introduced in the late 60s, the game was fun while it lasted. However, the market was later overtaken by more sophisticated games. 9. Patty Cake. Patty cake, baker's man. Bake me a cake as fast as you can. I lost it. Anyway, unfortunately, there was no cake involved in the game of Patty Cake. Instead, you were expected to recite a rhyme and clap your hands together. Today, if you want a cake, you can simply order one online. In fact, if you think about it, the world was a much healthier place when we played Patty Cake. Now, is it Patty Cake or Pat-a-Cake? Because for the longest time, I thought it was Patty Cake. Let me know in the comments below. 8. Spinning Tops. There's something simple, if not almost therapeutic, about playing with a spinning top. Balancing the end of a top on a flat surface and spinning is an entertaining but old-fashioned way of passing the time. Also, you may remember the spinning top in Christopher Nolan's movie Interstellar. I wonder if that top is still spinning. Listening to me describe spinning tops is probably making you either excited or bored, and I'm guessing a fair number of you are bored, which explains why kids don't play with them much in the 21st century. 7. Yo-Yo. Today, most kids wouldn't be interested in even looking at a yo-yo, never mind playing with one. That said, I'm sure many of our viewers remember the various tricks you could perform with just a length of string attached to a plastic housing. The yo-yo wasn't always made out of plastic, of course. The toy-based game dates back thousands of years to ancient China, at least according to some sources. By the way, if you're wondering where the name comes from, it's a Filipino word meaning come come. I could never do the tricks, but the butterfly, those were the coolest. Those could spin for, an eternity. 6. Horseshoes. If the idea of picking up horseshoes made of metal and throwing them at a stake in the ground sounds like fun, well then Horseshoes could be your new favorite game. The game itself is actually very old, so you may not find many people who want to play it with you. Horseshoes have definitely gone out of fashion with younger players who don't find it interesting anymore. Plus, the potential for accidents caused by flying pieces of metal is pretty high. Imagine cornhole, but instead of beanbags in a hole, it's horseshoes and a ring, and you have to get it to ring around. It's fun. 5. Noodle Tag. As the name suggests, Noodle Tag is a variation on the classic game of tag. There's chasing and catching involved, but where do the noodles fit in? They actually fit in pretty well. You see, the noodles involved are foam pool noodles, which makes soft and effective tools for tagging your fellow players. Whap! 4. Penny Whistle. Whistles are still part of games in the 21st century, usually heard during a soccer tournament or similar event. However, the penny whistle is seen as a thing of the past, partly because it's been around in its current form for about 200 years, and partly due to the fact that kids occupy themselves in other ways. You don't need a whistle when you're having a group gaming session online, for instance. Although if you do, bring a penny whistle to your next online match, like Marvel Rivals. Just a... No, that's a slide whistle. What the hell am I thinking? Bring a slide whistle every time. Do that too. 3. Mumble Peg. It doesn't take a genius to work out why Mumble Peg isn't played by children anymore. The game involves performing tricks with knives and other dangerous things. That's right, the basic idea is that kids have good, wholesome fun with knives. What could go wrong? Well, plenty, of course, meaning this activity isn't encouraged among young and impressionable players. The story becomes even more worrying when you hear where the name comes from. Mumble Peg refers to the loser having to pull a peg from the ground using only their teeth. Why? I did not play Mumble Peg. Just throwing that out there. 2. Hula Hoops. Kids were crazy about them in the 50s and 60s. However, today's kids show little interest in hula hoops. The well-known plastic versions came from the Whammo company, though the original idea of the hula hoop is thought to date back centuries. They were observed in Hawaii by the British during the early 19th century, but the tradition is older than that. Still, the hula dancing and the hoops made an impression. The Hawaiians' distinctive dance moves went on to inspire the iconic name. 1. PeeGee Hockey. Watch any ice hockey game at a professional level and you'll realize it can get quite brutal and bloody out there in the cold. That's not to say that ice hockey is an adults-only activity. PeeGee Hockey is aimed at kids aged approximately 11 to 12 years old, though numbers are on the way down. Even in Canada, where ice hockey is a major part of the culture, young hockey players declined by over 30% between 2009 and 2024. Factors such as cost have played a role in excluding kids from the game. Well, it's game over for this list, but the fun continues with my closing question. Which of these game-based projects was a real Kickstarter? Was it A, a hula hoop made from recycled dentures? B, a gaming system that took the blood from your veins? C, a Monopoly set based on the movie Goodfellas? Or D, a board game about inventing your own board game? Let me know your answers in the comments. And if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, click that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new content like this one, 25 shocking, dangerous toys made for kids. The link's right here, and I will catch you guys next time. What was your favorite toy you ever played with? Let me know in the comments below. Bye. That was it. Nailed it.